Well, hello, creatives, kind folks, and community in the tabletop RPG community. Thank you for joining me. I am DBJ, your host of RPG with DBJ, and each day we have a different topic. Monster Mondays, Tips and Tricks Tuesday. Today is World Building Wednesday, and the entire week we also have a theme, or maybe that's supposed to be opposite. But anyway, today's theme is, and this week's themes, I apologize, are puzzles, clues, and riddles, and a little bit of obstacles in there, and conundrums, mysteries, enigmas, and those kind of things. But that being said, yeah, Monday, Tuesday, we kind of went off the rails as we normally do, as when we get together here. But today we're doing world building, and so we're going to take the theme of puzzles, clues, and riddles, and world build. Where are we going to go with this? And so, had me toss and turn a little bit, thinking about world building, because I usually try to come to these live streams quite naked, not physically, but mentally, unprepared, no notes written, just a couple of words, and then we dive into it. But I do have a few things I'd like to start out with, and follow me on this. So if you're someone who's looking for some really good ideas that you want to steal to build a world, this is the place you want to be. So puzzles and riddles and clues. Now in the tabletop RPG community, that is a staple that we love, like our puzzles and our riddles. But there's also an equal amount. Our love for them also has an equal amount of difficulty implementing them into the world. So I thought, let's world build in a place, in a location, a setting that embraces the idea of uh, the the puzzle, the riddle, the thing that needs to be solved. So follow me down as we deep dive. All right. So I thought of three settings, and actually these could be combined together as one. So it's possible you could make an entire universe about this. But let's dive down into three. So one I thought of is mystery of the ancients, the gods, where humanity has grown up in and around these artifacts of sorts, artifacts of the world left behind by elder beings, and the rules, the instructions to manipulate the artifacts of the world have been left behind. No one knows them, and so you have ancient writings and languages and things written in places, and no one quite understands them. Now, when I say no one, there are a number of nations where those secrets have been revealed, and those nations are able to manipulate and use those puzzles, the physical puzzles and the riddles, the literary riddles, to solve particular situations, maybe to gain solving the riddle gives them a true name, or a way to verbalize, to open up a passage. Now, when I say a world and artifacts, I'm not talking swords or shields or thrones or telescopes or something like that. I'm talking about the actual landscape. I'm imagining city walls that can move when particular levers are thrown, or stones are depressed in a particular manner. I'm talking riddles that allow literally the mountainside to split open to allow passage, through before the new winter snows come again. I'm talking about opening up doors that are 10 feet thick, like a bank vault, when the proper riddles are answered, and that's where the current king and his regime hides their treasure, or puts their political dissidents down deep in a dungeon and such. I could even go so far as to imagine a world where, when given the proper when solving the proper riddles and getting the proper command words, or moving particular items into a particular position, that a whole city could literally become enclosed or locked down or even flip over, such as what we imagine the extraplanar realm of Mechanus to be, where that world has whole continents built on gear shift, on interlocked gears, and the gears move, and the entire continents move themselves within the gears. And so you could have a world where the players, you as the game master, are dropping puzzles and riddles, and when they solve them, they're able to, cross, vast distances, or bring islands up against the islands will shift and move up against the shoreline for them to go over to the island by simply moving the great monoliths into position in the proper order, or something of that nature. Now, going on to the two other kind of settings, and these might be even considered very limited in scope, would be a location where there's nothing but assassinations and backbiting, deception. There may even be individuals who are that people hire, and it's a new position, like almost like a caste or caste system, where there are people who are only hired to taste your foods to find out if they're poisoned, even going so far down that they're not just for nobles, but even the common people have ones dressed in certain type of clothing or cloak, or a scarf is wrapped around their neck, or their faces are painted, and they eat portions of your food to make sure that you are not being poisoned. And this city of thieves and assassins it may even be broader than just a single city. But the idea would be, as the game master, that the players may need to use riddles in order to hide information amongst themselves, so that they can pass on information, or you uncover a particular riddle that allows you to knowing the answer allows you to pass into a protected or unknown area, or maybe a particular region of the city, or a protectorate where only those who know the answer may pass. Or maybe there's a fence, a person who is able to find you, or to transfer stolen goods, important information, like a spy network of sorts. And when you go into a particular restaurant or a shop or something, and someone just absently tells you a riddle, if you know the answer to it, that allows you to go to a back room that leads into a dark recess, or an upper attic or something, where other members of a rebellious force or guerrilla fighters or something are hiding in the attic and talking about their plans to depose or even assassinate someone who is trying to assassinate you. So as a second type of realm, those would be riddles. Now, as far as puzzles, incorporating puzzles into a city of thieves, it's also possible that many places are well protected. Instead of just having the rogue in the party, or whoever can climb, do second story work and climb into a window or scale a wall, maybe places are so protected by iron bars and multiple layers of security that the only way to pass by, and the way they've protected themselves, are through mechanical means, where there's multiple locked doors and gates and such, and learning the puzzles to get through those areas. So it's not just a matter of climbing into the second story and just opening up the window, but learning the secrets to the puzzles, or at least finding out what those puzzles are, which could mean, one person has to stand and hold down the lever in one location, while another person 20 feet away must take their hand and depress a stone. And once both of those things happen, then a third person can then then a lock is exposed, and then that person can pick the lock. And then once that lock is picked, then the door is open. But you only have a certain amount of time to jump through before the door is once again lock again. And now you're locked inside, maybe going after your prey and killing them, but needing to find the alternate method to escape. So that's also a way to incorporate like puzzles into a setting where it's normal for people to perform one or more number of actions to unlock something or shift things around and what have you. Yeah, Professor Dogo says, go through the nuke launch procedure. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now, what was mentioned before, especially, I think it was Infinite Roleplay the other day, when I mentioned puzzles, physical puzzles, he's like, well, aren't those just obstacles? And my answer is, yeah, they are. Physical puzzles, to me, are puzzles where you have not predetermined the answer. A puzzle could be, you need to get across 5 tons of gold over 500 miles, and you have wagons, and those wagons loaded, laden down with all this gold, have to go through swamps and mountains and forests and desert, and you have storms and floodwaters and snow and bandits and those kind of things. And it's trying to figure out, okay, how do we get 5 tons of gold across a rickety old rope bridge? Are we going to, and we're being hunted too, so do we break up the gold and make, put it in backpacks? It's going to take a long time. Do we trust the rope bridge? How do we reinforce it? Do we go around? Oh, if we go around, it's going to be a 3-day hike to go around. That's what I mean by that. And so, Professor Dogo, I absolutely agree with you. Like, go through the nuke launch procedure might be a very a perfect way to solve a puzzle or of some sort. Maybe there's I'm going to read Zev's comment, and then I'll go back to your nuke launch procedure comment. Zev says, maybe adventurers are hired to run trap rooms to see how lethal it is and if it's efficient to protect. I like that. Anytime a player is brought to 0 HP, they're magically teleported back to the waiting room. Anything lower than 50% is considered a failure by crafting standards and is scrapped. The players get paid a certain amount to confirm and are given a bonus if it fails. Ooh, you know what? You could take that really far with those kind of things. I mean, like you said, the players may be hired to essentially run trap rooms. How difficult is it to get through the traps? While also combining the fact that the people who have the traps set up might be thinking, okay, I've got to navigate this every day, so I pass my 5 traps while at the same time making those traps, lethal, or capture my opponents, or what have you. I like that a lot. And what a great excuse to incorporate a ton of really unique and original traps in your world and kill your PC, air quotes, kill your PCs at the same time. It's not hurting them permanently. So I like that a lot. And combining that with Professor Dogo's thing, Zev, you're mentioning about going through the traps and the nuke launch procedure. If you, of course, you guys are familiar with the nuke launch procedure, right? Where it takes at least 2 people to have 2 different keys in 2 different locations that they cannot both accommodate themselves. And usually there's usually some kind of code network where one person has like a hidden code, maybe in invisible ink or something, and 2 people break open the codes at the same time to see if they match, or someone has a code and then they receive a radio signal and then they pull the code out of a safe after opening up the safe, and then of course they have to know the code to the safe, so they open up the safe and then they go into the safe, and then there's some kind of code or something that's hidden in it, and they crack it open, and maybe they have to shake it or what have you. It's exposed to the air, and then that code is given from a radio signal. So you could play those kind of things, both like futuristic, modern day, and fantasy, using invisible inks, using scrying techniques and crystal balls and things of that nature. Here's a perfect example of an obstacle slash puzzle slash trap. Let's do a classic. I mentioned this before, a classic swinging pendulum room where you have like 3 to 5 swinging pendulums that can slice you if you get hit. Dante, what's going on there, man? Oh, glad you joined me. We're talking about puzzles, clues, and riddles this week. I hope you'll have some fun. I'm glad you're up, dude. And we got to talk. So anyway, so imagine, if you will, your classic swinging pendulum. So you got your blade swinging back and forth across the room. Players have to maybe time out certain things, getting past each blade. Maybe someone is so quick they think they can run through. Others might take their time trying to fit between the blades or whatever. I mentioned before about someone strong maybe holding up their weapon or shield to stop one of the blades. So if we extrapolate that out, of course, you don't need to make them blades. You can have them the faces of dragons, and they're each breathing out a different breath type weapon. So what, there's like dragon heads on the walls staggered, and so if you go past one dragon's head, it breathes fire, another one breathes poison gas, another one spits out black acid or something. And a possible way to solve that, instead of just running through and making your saves for half damage, which is okay, but maybe a little bit boring. Maybe there's a way, if they uncover certain clues or even a riddle, wink, wink, that to get past the puzzle, maybe it requires someone to put their hand on the nose of one of the dragons, which stops the breath weapon of another dragon's head, right? And maybe they can hear the clicking or the maneuvering or even the possible activation of the dragon's breath that's in front of them. So each person doesn't stop their own dragon's breath, but they can stop the dragon's breath from someone else, and they have to time themselves to get out of the way of their dragon's breath. And so it could be a matter of, with maybe, let's say there's 5 PCs, if they figure it out, each PC could then place their hand on one of the dragon's noses, which stops all the breath weapons, and then one by one, each person slips past another person to get out the room. Again, solving the riddle, the puzzle, the trap, the obstacle, all of them combined together. Now, there could be the opposite effect, where maybe there's like a carving of like the dragon's tail. The dragon's tail's on the ground, on the floor, and if you step on the dragon's tail, it automatically maybe activates the dragon's heads. And mind you, I'm thinking this off the top of my head, but my point being is that I don't believe there should be a delineation between riddles and puzzles and obstacles and traps. Like, I mean, I can imagine them all being mixed together. Zed says, I made an Is It League machine room. Rube Goldberg machine, the art of my new Ravnica campaign. The players are being paid to record an experiment to see if the machine would run on wind energy. A series of cogs would trigger certain gears, which pulled on some rope, which hit a lever that activated one deadly trap after another. When the players finished the experiment, I asked them to roll. Oh man, I love guys, look up Rube Goldberg machines. Like a lot of them are like tongue in cheek about making like toast or something like that. But if you really see some of those that are made, if you look on YouTube and find people who make those Rube Goldberg machines, imagine the little balls or dominoes that go through those traps. I mean, those machines, and imagine them as the player characters. That's Tomb of Horrors, and that's a great way to steal some ideas. Dante says, maybe triggering the trap is the only way to enter a chamber, otherwise sealed off unless the floor collapsed. Ooh. Now, we did mention before about using puzzles and riddles in the tabletop games, that we want to make sure that we don't leave locked doors. And I don't mean, well, I do mean physically, but I also mean intellectually, meaning like you design this great, just cool adventure, and the players have to get through a door, but they fail all the rolls and they miss all the clues to get through it. And it's like, oh, I've got 3 pages of more adventure. And the players are like, oh, we can't continue. Let's go back out. So you want to be careful of only having one method to escape or pass through or continue. But absolutely, like you said, like maybe to get through it, they have to activate a trap. And it could be that the rogue's like, oh, I know how to get through every trap. And it's like, sure, but you're going to leave a lot of locked doors behind you. You won't be able to, proceed further. You're going to be going around in a bunch of circles, and that finding the clue to that might be the deal. Also, let's remember from the original Indiana Jones Temple of Doom that bypassing a trap doesn't necessarily mean the trap is either non-lethal or non-useful. Players can go backwards through a trap to get their enemies to fall into or be victim to those same traps that they've just bypassed by either resetting them, or maybe the trap. I'll give an example. Pit trap. Person just gets ready to fall into a pit trap. Pit trap fills with acid. Now you have yourself, instead of a pit trap with acid, now you have basically an open pit filled to the brim with acid. So players could run backwards, jump over the pit, and maybe illusion or push and do shove maneuver or whatever, and push their own enemies into that big vat of acid that they almost fell into, which was empty before, which somebody was supposed to fall into, and then get filled with acid and have them swim in acid and die. Says they got a 1. Oh shoot, they got a 1. The machine exploded. They were out of range. They went back, worried the engineer was going to be mad. He was ecstatic, saying he learned new things out of the failure and gave them a bonus. That's awesome. Also, solving puzzles and riddles, like, it behooves us to give, reward the players for figuring these things out. I myself am the type of person that finds it's my own reward from just figuring these things out intellectually without having to make die rolls. But again, if you're going to bother putting an obstacle in front of the players that they get punished for not surviving or getting through it, whether they get punished for not getting the finding the clue, or punished for not knowing the right command words, or not knowing the proper procedures, or essentially being harmed by whatever they go through, then on the opposite end, like, give them the credit and reward them for actually going through this terrible situation that you created for them. So talking about a third setting. So the first setting would be basically humanity living within the devices, the world left behind by an ancient civilization, or even gods, where or elders or whoever, divine beings, that when given, knowing the proper procedures or command words, they can actually move the environment itself, or the city states. And then I thought about the killers, like, you're living in a den of thieves, and the goal here is you're actually collecting, you're actually buying and selling the idea of how to learning riddles to make connections with people that are hiding from, an evil despot or something, or there are puzzles to get through because places are protected because everyone else is trying to kill every other individual. It says no credit, only corpses. Tear up all their character sheets as they weep. All shall fear me in despair. I'm guessing that we're not on the same page with this. I know you're being sarcastic. Although that is, let me stop there. That is a way to play. I mean, there's some OSR people out there, some old school Renaissance, old school rules individuals that are like, hey, your character dies, I get to tear up your character sheet. You know what I mean? But another method might be, in this situation, might be that what's a good enemy? Like, okay, imagine an enemy that is like the Lords of Light, and it says I actually not killed one player character yet. Oh, well, you're not working hard enough. No, yeah, dreading and hoping for it equally. You know what? I bet I would bet that they're doing the same thing too. Especially if you play something like DCC or some old school gaming. It's like save or suck. Here we go. But there's you could flip something on its head. Like there's an evil regime made up of nothing but like lawful and just individuals. Like the proctors are, taking people out into a public square to torture them for information, and as they're being stabbed and sliced, the clerical proctors are healing their wounds, as they're being tortured, and the people are being told that if it wasn't for their the lords of light will heal their wounds, but they will always remember their failures as a people or whatever. I don't know. An arcane weapon is floating in front of in front of a proctor cleric or something like that, and smashing people's hands and healing their hands afterwards, and doing it over and over again. Maybe what is it? Zones of truth are something used to coerce the people and forcing them to tell the truth about them working against the nobility and the people who rule. And the only way for the players to survive, as maybe the quote unquote evil will be brought into the light, maybe the players are now have to be the ones who hide in the shadows, who are the air quotes the evil characters. They're the ones working against the evil regime of nothing but the good and lawful justice people. And so maybe they have to use thieves' cant and riddles and puzzles and such to hide from a dictatorship that's starting to spread and take over the world. And in order for them to hide, they're using certain types of languages and puzzles, so that if they're forced to tell the truth, or their mind is read, or someone is kidnapped or captured, or they become a political dissident and they're tortured, that they won't give out that information, because the only thing they're going to blab out are these weird riddles that no one knows the answer to. And so maybe that becomes a way for the player characters to communicate with others, and that's a way for other people who are rebels against the dictatorship to leave clues for where there's weapon caches and magic and safe houses and such. Maybe a safe house is hidden behind a secret door, and the only way to activate that secret door is to find a certain key, and also find the location where behind a tapestry that must be, again, a stone that must be depressed. And then, a third thing is that there's a wall sconce that also must be pulled down. And they might be they might be hundreds of feet away from each other, but the timing might be right. Or they might, it may take two people. One person reaches under the tapestry, presses the stone. Another person pulls a sconce. A third person spins the door to activate the secret door, and the PCs can get through. But they may not be able to get that information until they answer a riddle from a person who owns a shop that they go to, who then wants them to get the information on answering that riddle. And maybe they need another contact who knows the answer of the riddle that the shop owner has when you go in there to buy their tasty pastries. Anyway, Zev says, or you could do what Portal did, the video game, I'm assuming. In Portal, you play Chell, a lady who was brought into Aperture Science Labs as a kid to take your kid to work each day, but then the labs were closed and locked. That Portal is another way of like incorporating either, like, of course, science fiction, fantasy, maybe, for example, maybe you're in a dungeon or even a city that has no doors, and the only way to move from place to place is to activate a portal, or the activation of a portal in one location closes a portal in another location. So let's say you have a room and you have a portal behind you. The only way to open the portal at the other end is to let the portal behind you close. Or it could be that finding the order that the portals open and close in, and then doing it that way. Zev says maybe a wizard teleports a party into a mega dungeon that they crafted and are calling it a science experiment. Yeah, it's always the science experiment, right? Yeah, don't trust the wizard. You fight for your life, running through monsters and traps to study human survival. Ooh, like a rat in a maze. That's a great. What a simple, easy way to get a bunch of players into a dungeon. Like, yay, give me a reason why you would agree to trust this wizard, and boom, let's get started. And then maybe there's a time limit. Maybe there are things that the wizard hopes you uncover, or maybe the wizard has never been able to fully go through this maze, these deadly traps or something, and is hoping that an adventuring party made up of a number of people can help him figure out the clues to get through it. that might be an idea as well. Using, again, the idea of having like the puzzles and stuff to get through this, to find your way through, the idea of a classic dungeon is a great method. Even a cityscape. There could be a capture the flag or scavenger hunt for the PCs, where specifically, instead of hiding the fact that they need to get the MacGuffin or doing a fetch quest, it's like, literally, no, this literally is a fetch quest. Like, you need to go to these 5 locations to assemble this device or assemble the keys or whatever, collect the words that will answer the riddles that the Sphinx will let you go into the dungeon to further get into further kinds of danger or something. You now also talking about world building and making a world filled with puzzles and riddles and clues. We can use, we've primarily been focusing on man-made or sentient creature made encounters, right? Gears and traps and the machinations of evil people and the people who are working against them. But some of these things could actually be quite natural encounters and environments, made completely by accident. It could be a natural part of the world. And now there are 2 methods you can think of this. One is like considering like a place like Planescape, where riddles and puzzles are of themselves a natural order of the world. So for example, it could be that particular creatures or races or locations where you're at respond to solving a riddle or vocal incantations or such. So you could be on a plane of existence where you're in front of a river and the river itself will split, or you'll be able to walk across the river as long as you know the answer to the proper riddle that is once again written into the reflection on the waters, much like the Lady in the Lake, right? It's never explained, but it does exist for King Arthur. So no one actually, has tea with the Lady in the Lake or tries to kill her, but she is the Lady in the Lake. And so you could have a world where it's just arcane, and finding out, like a druidic cult, finding out these tips and tricks to get through the world are a way for you to navigate the world, to avoid or at least mitigate some of the dangers there. Zev says another part of my Ravnica campaign had them walking through the rubble belt, the ruins part of the city made by barbarian Gruul clans. Okay. And I made them roll for traps and just skin them as buildings. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely positively. Collapsing, gravel and rubble shifting, turning into difficult terrain, former walkways becoming sheer cliffs or small mountains they need to climb. Absolutely. I mean, we anything like burning buildings, crumbling rooftops, collapsing bridges, just literally going through a place where there's you want to be careful of an avalanche or tumbling rock. And again, you also have the idea that more than simply watching your step could affect the environment as well, like an avalanche and loud noise. So that player who loves to throw out their Thunderwave spell might, the other players might want to tell them to reconsider that, because if you do that, you're going to have, a couple of 100 million tons of snow drop down on top of the party, right? So you could have other effects or actions activate the so-called, air quotes, traps as well, using a simple pit trap, right? A pit trap is oh, watch out, the pit opens up, you might fall through. But like Zev says, collapsing or gravel and rubble or shifting debris, old buildings and such. You absolutely can have players run across like abandoned buildings, or maybe they're dilapidated, or it's an ancient ruins or what have you. And the so-called pit trap is just them watching their step. And if you do it in the proper way, if you describe the world in a proper way, you can actually incorporate half a dozen, hundreds of these traps just reskinned, and the players will not think anything of it. A perfect example is, let's say you design a dungeon where there are 57 pit traps and 68 grease spells attached around each of the pit traps. And right now, you're probably calling me an a-hole if I decide to make a dungeon that has 57 pit traps and 86, grease spells all around the pit traps. But what if I told you that the players, I'm setting up a situation where as players, you have to cross a frozen lake, and crossing the frozen lake, there's a half-mile frozen lake you must cross, but you're being hunted by dire wolves, wargs, and winter wolves, and also, I don't know, bugbears adapted to the cold with their white fur coming after you in a big horde, right? So every step you take is a possibility of falling into a air quote pit trap. And it's a frozen over lake. It's slippery like a grease spell, and anyone can fall through at any moment. And maybe the PCs could use it against their enemy, or the enemy could use it against the So it's all about context. It's not about traps being useless or being dumb. It's about the context in which they're set. Is this a natural habitat? Is this a normal place they can operate? And you can even reskin the methods, how the trap affects people, whether it's lethal or just causes a condition, or it's just a problem for them to overcome, and the methods to escape those same traps and such. Zev says, I'm wondering how the dungeon is still structurally sound with 60 pits. Hey, listen, it's my dungeon. I'm trying to screw my players. 60 pits, they're just in there. And by the way, I'm gonna have giant-sized creatures that for some reason fit into big rooms with small hallways. So I'm going to have that. I'm going to have creatures that for some reason all exist in different rooms, but never seem to encounter each other. So I'm going to completely break the ecology. So I'm going to do that. There's a dragon in one room. There's 3 pit fiends in another room. There's 25 skeletons. Oh, there's 4 oozes in yet another room. Yeah. Professor Douglas says the pits are load-bearing, surprisingly effective. Yeah, especially with all the dead bodies in them. That's the whole point. I gotta pack my foundation with dead bodies of adventurers. Well, I was gonna say, in all seriousness, we're never serious. But anyway, yes, reskinning the hell out of layers and spells and traps and things. Okay, so for example, falling into a pit trap. Okay, let's go back to the pit trap again. But we'll pick with other traps in a minute. But a pit trap, okay, we're thinking dex save to get out the way, maybe some perception or investigation skill checks to find. If you find it, you fall in a pit trap, you take falling damage. Maybe you throw something at the bottom of the pit, spikes, poison spikes, an animal, throw some acid down there, maybe it fills with water, whatever. Zeb says, this just sounds like an OSHA violation waiting to happen. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. Imagine inspectors coming into the dungeon to check to make sure that the traps, not that the traps aren't lethal, but that they're working properly. Like, we're investigating this. I think you need to oil the spring on this the spring trap here. Yeah. Lich is putting his head down like, I just wanted to take over the world. I can't believe this. I'm getting audited. But yeah, I mean, a pit trap. Imagine escaping the pit trap using some other method, like, for example, charisma. How do you avoid a pit trap with charisma? So maybe it's not quite a pit trap at all, but maybe it's a mouth that opens up, and it opens up and swallows you if you don't say the right things, maybe convincing it not to eat you or to open up beneath you because you're in a arcane world, or you're in some deep part of a dungeon that's made up of nothing but madness or whatever. Or maybe instead of the pit trap escaping with like a dex save, maybe it's strength. And so it's not a matter of jumping out the way. It's a matter of either holding the opening open with your arms and legs, or something magically opens up beneath you. There's just no way to jump out of the way, but there is a way to keep it from closing in and slamming on top of you. So you have to use your strength to squeeze your way out of it, like a sphincter or something. But yeah, that could be a possibility as well. So, and of course, falling damage, you could change that to necrotic. You could change it to thunder or lightning, electrical damage, acid, what have you, all kinds of things. And once you start to break out of the box in your head, if that's where you're thinking, or you're like, oh, I don't have any, start thinking outside the box and reskinning some of the things you already have and go, oh, I know what I can do. Yeah, I mean, even what's another trap? The collapsing ceiling's a classic one. And a collapsing ceiling you can put that, as long as it's something over top of their heads, you could put that damn near anywhere. An abandoned building, like Zev says. In Ravnica, if you guys don't know, here's my Ravnica book. Ooh, plug. Yeah, Watsy, support me here. Just joking. But in Ravnica, a higher plane made up of nothing but a city, you have abandoned areas. So a collapsing ceiling, you can go into any kind of room, abandoned buildings, collapsing bridges, any of those things. And as a matter of fact, you could both combine a collapsing ceiling and a pit trap by having the players cross a bridge, so anyone on top of the bridge can avoid falling into a pit trap, which means they fall through the bridge. And then anyone beneath the bridge is hit by a collapsing ceiling all at the same time, right? Oh, you stepped the wrong way. Now the stones start to break. Make a roll to see if you hold your fingertips onto the edge before you fall down. And then anyone scrambling beneath could have been crushed by the falling debris of the bridge. Unless, of course, you're Legolas, in which case you could just defy gravity and walk up the stones. But whatever, I digress. Zev says I made a player fall in a pit trap. It had portal above it and below it, and it led to an infinite loop. That's a classic. That's a classic trap from Tomb of Horrors. Yeah, the infinite loop fall. Yeah. If the player stopped him, he would take fall damage. They managed to catch him with a running tackle, so I reduced the damage a lot. Felt nice for their planning. Player, I've been falling for 20 minutes. And seeing their friends over and over again. Hey, wait, please catch me. Hey, wait. Hey, sorry, I had to be funny there. So, sorry if that hurt your ears, guys, but that would be hilarious. Like, okay, so how do we catch the halfling? And the halfling's like folding their arms, like, guys, please get me out of this. And don't forget, if they drop their equipment and their sword's falling at the same speed, and it's just like they're trying to reach for it, and that player just keeps falling over and over and over again. And of course, you have to have somebody with the 8 intelligence, like, I'm gonna jump in after them and try to catch them, and they're like, no, oh, face plant. Oh man. But yeah, the infinite falling pit is one. There's also the a classic, I don't know if you could call it it's kind of a cursed item. It was a mirror of opposition, where you go into a dark room, or you have a room with a mirror with a cloak over it, and when you open up you shine a light, or you remove the cover off of the mirror reflects you, and then you yourself step out of the mirror, and now the PC has to fight themselves. And if the PCs are overpowered, you just use their stats as the game master to have them fight each other. And I think how it works is, I think there's a equivalent from the deck of many things. I think they only have like half the hit points, but they have every other capability. And then you just have them fight each other. And then it's like, shrug your shoulders, like, sorry, your own character killed you. Although the way to get out of that is to switch up opponents. The barbarian fighting the barbarian's probably not too smart, but switching it up, the wizard blasts the barbarian goes after the wizard of their own party, etc. But yeah, that's a classic one as well. The tilting room is one. The room that tilts and you fall down one end, maybe into like lava or fire, or you fall down one end into a portal to come out the other end. There's infinitely shrinking room where you walk down the hallway and don't realize you're shrinking down, and then you slide into like a 3-inch tube. You slide into the tube, fall into a room, and then when you come back to original size, you can't fit your way back out of it. Of course, there's the locked door flooding chamber idea, and you can't lift up the 5-ton door. That's a classic one. So yeah, there's a ton of those, man. Zeb says they asked if they could take a point of exhaustion to mimic nausea. I said, hey, you want to make it harder for yourself? Feel free. And you know what? If I had players that willingly dove into something like that, you know what, it makes sense that I would drop my sword, or it makes sense that I would lose my concentration, or it makes sense that I would have a level of exhaustion or not be able to use my arm, or my movement would be cut in half because my ankle's broken. I definitely give them at a minimum inspiration, if not some other method of thanking them for immersing themselves into your world, making your life easier so that they're tracking their own harm and reminding you that they are harmed and then taking it upon themselves. So definitely give those players a round of applause and thank them for in not just verbally, but mechanical ways as well. Zed says, my favorite puzzle room done to me was an empty room filled with invisible blades and other traps. Oh, the party had to guide a player throughout the floor, trying not to touch a trigger, only able to see traps via surrounding mirrors. Oh, I like that a lot. I really like that idea of spinning blades and blades coming down and things, maybe spikes shooting out the wall, and the only way to see the items are to look in a mirror, and then you have to both look in the mirror and watch where the player's going. That's a great idea. And Zeb, you bring up something. I kind of hinted at it, but Zeb, you bring up something where collectively as a group, if you can create a puzzle or a riddle or a trap, an obstacle, any kind of obstacle where the players need to work together and the players come together to solve the situation, don't think of it like, rolling your eyes and throw your hands up like, oh, I can't believe the players got past another one of my traps. The idea is that they worked together to figure their way out. If they can get across your rope bridge by working together, hey, I'm going to put our equipment on a floating disc, and I'm the wizard, but the rogue's going to go ahead first to find all the little nooks and crannies to avoid the danger so that my character doesn't fall, and then the barbarian's going to come along behind us with the heavy pack and follow in our same footsteps and blah, blah, whatever. The point is that they work together to try to solve the situation. That's what you want. It's not rolling your eyes and being frustrated that your players didn't fall into your trap, which another thing, which is like people hate traps to begin with, because usually if you take your classic trap, it's like, oh, you as the GM, you get to giggle hilariously as you basically kill off or harm one of your players severely, and that's not fun. I mean, it's fun for you, but not fun for them. Or the player avoids the trap or avoids most of the traps, and then you as the GM sit there with your arms folded, pouting and poking out your bottom lip or holding your breath because you're frustrated, and the players are like, yay, I got to defeat the GM or DM or whatever. So that's why people don't particularly like traps. But if you reskin them and make them part of your world, classic traps were made in, if I'm not mistaken, feudal Japan, in terms of protecting castles from being sieged. So they would have, instead of a straight line to go up into to get to the into the keep, you had like switchbacks, and those switchbacks had like murder holes and pits and ways for them to drop like boiling oil or tar or pitch or something and whatnot. Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. Zev says, an addendum to an earlier idea of mine, maybe the players go throughout a wizard tower, triggering and disarming and running from hundreds of traps, and they reach the top to help the wizard. Ooh, and so instead of the wizard hiring them or forcing them into the traps, maybe they have to get the wizard out because something went wrong. Maybe the wizard the traps and became paranoid and can't get out, or the wizard was trapped in there by another more powerful force that put them in there. and is maybe waiting for the PCs or someone who is able to navigate them. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, guys, we're almost at the hour mark. I know we're getting a little early, but I'm a little hungry and get a little tired. But again, traps, puzzles, incorporating them into your world is, I don't want to say it's easy. It's don't rack your brain about it. Just make up your mind that they're going to be in your world and then rationalize why they're there. As opposed to going, puzzles are stupid, riddles are stupid, traps are stupid. Instead of folding your arms and going, I'm never using them again. There is a way to use traps, and there are ways. As a matter of fact, traps and puzzles and riddles are something that people put up temporarily. Yeah, yeah. Maybe you forgot to grab some food or forgot how to pass by the traps. Yeah, sounds like me, right? The wizard's like, oh, I forgot to bring my keys to get past my traps, and now I'm stuck in my own wizard's tower. Damn it. Goes back out to get himself a cup of coffee, and he's like, ooh, 27 traps. Oh, I'm gonna have to send out a message to get some adventurers to kill themselves trying to get to me so I can get to my breakfast. Oh man. Yeah, Zev says a nice natural trap is a net trap, but it's made of giant spider silk. Hell, a net trap could be made of jungle vines, or yeah, like you said, spider silk, or what's something else that can fall on someone that can trap them in? Swampy areas where you have like willow trees and moss and such. A collapsing tree branches could fall on someone, and having it fall on someone could be the equivalent of a net trap, where it doesn't really hurt them, but they have to scramble to get out of it. Oh man. Now the party, Zev says, now the party needs to free the player or NPC before they're eaten. Marriage? Not understanding that. You're wrong. Unless you mean a net trap is like marriage. You got to use. Hey, you better have your deception or persuasion skill check might need to be used to escape that net trap. You're wrong. Oh, you're so wrong, Zeb. That almost went over at my head, man. Most things go over my head, but that one I caught on to, dude. You said something that could trap someone. That's the charisma trap. You know what? We don't really think of charisma saves and using charisma to escape physical dangers. I use a prenup to get advantage. Oh shit. Oh, that's so wrong. You're so right. Oh man. But we often, maybe we should have brought this up when we talked about human mobs and things, like before you get crushed or stomped or something like that, or captured or whatever, using your charisma. Maybe I did bring it up about human mobs. But anyway, avoiding trying to I'm going to hell. I think we all are. But getting back to the traps and puzzles and riddles and things, incorporating them into your world. I do believe that you can also not just incorporating them into the world, but using natural environments as well, but also foreshadow some of this stuff, right? When the players go someplace, don't just surprise them with your first pit trap and go, you fell in, right? Have some traps that were already sprung by people that were there before. Have an ancient civilization where some of the traps don't even work very well. Traps are portable. Think any period of time in history where there was a war, any kind of skirmish or battle. Traps are portable. People bring things that spring on others. So you could have portable traps. If you want to be technical, a landmine is a portable trap. A bear trap, the snapping bear trap, is a portable trap. People will dig pits so that people fall into them by accident, or horses fall into them and have a misstep. So you can have arcane traps like glyphs of warding covered over by thin amounts of sand or dirt or soot, and the player steps on the glyph, and the glyph goes off and the spell attacks them. Maybe a fireball goes off, or they're teleported somewhere into a dungeon or something, or teleported out to deep sea or ocean, or teleport 100 feet in the air and drop from the sky or whatever. But anyway, but you get my point that traps can also be something that are portable and placed somewhere because the kobolds set them up, or the enemy nation is moving siege weapons and such, and they are expanding their territory. And of course, you can't get over the castle walls without first going past the air quotes obstacles that are in the way for you to get there. Oh yeah. Forgot to take your anybody. A tree log on a chain. We saw that in. Let's see. What's some classic? We saw that in Star Wars, Return of the Jedi. We saw that in the Predator, the first Predator movie. Yeah, a tree log on a chain used to bash a troll or ogre getting too close to the city. Yeah, Professor Doe says a tree log doesn't sound portable. I don't know. Depends on how big you are. Anyway, but you're absolutely well portable in the sense that it wasn't there before and then someone put it there maybe a week ago. Yeah. Yeah, how big are your pockets? Yeah, telekinesis. Yeah, says, or make the half orcs pull their weight. The Goliath is like, I'm not the only one grabbing crap, you do it too. But absolutely, you as a matter of fact, you could have players leave an area, come back, and now they're filled with traps. Players leave the city. Players leave city. They go on an adventure. When they come back, war has started because you've already foreshadowed the fact that enemy forces are coming to the city state. The city state is preparing their defenses, and then there's like spike traps. There's like again the swinging log on the chain. Maybe there's what's the bending of the tree with spikes on it, so when someone steps or hits the rope, the tree springs back to its proper size and flings like darts or something. You could have of course, there's the net trap on the ground where they hit a wire and the net grabs them. And again, you could split this up amongst the party. So someone walking ahead of the party hits the rope or hits the spring that makes a net fall on someone behind them, right? So you can also spread the danger around that way. Or there's the walking through the valley and something they make noise or they do something so rocks fall down on top of them. There's what are some other obstacles that we can come up with? There's natural obstacles like flooding, like I mentioned before, flooding, storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunami. There's earthquakes as well. You could something that I'll bring that up later. Let me get back into the chat. This says maybe the pit trap is a series of tunnels made by forest animals that entrap their prey with burrowing tunnels. Yeah. I love myself some boule, but they're not the only ones that dig pits, right? There are predatory animals, or maybe there's even this is weird to say, maybe it's by accident. Giant moles are just digging holes in the ground and people fall into them. Although you could have something underground that digs holes and they just wait for prey to fall down into, like you said, like giant spiders, punji. Deadman the Storyteller brings up punji sticks. Of course, human beings make traps all the time. Who's to say that humanity can't do that? Any kind of sentient being makes portable traps as well. Professor Dogo says getting into the city under siege would be an interesting challenge. Yet maybe the PCs need to get past. They are allies of the city, but the traps are set up around the city. The PCs need to navigate their way through the puzzle of traps to get behind the castle walls, because the city is under siege. And of course, the defender of the city is like, we're not gonna put down our defenses just to let your bunch of 5 people get across our walls. Like, you're gonna have to figure your own way through. You know what I mean? And that might be a great way to do it as well. Says I love using spiders or scorpions to freak out my players. I love scorpions and spiders too, man. I'm not a big fan of insects in real life, but yeah. Zed says random trebuchet blasts. Gates are built to tunnel enemies into murder holes. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they've done that. It's next to my bed. Oh, anyway, guys, we've hit the hour mark. So, yeah, we're getting some stuff ready. Wife's off to work. I got to get ready. Guys, thank you for joining me. I know I'm cutting it short a little bit there, but yeah, absolutely, you guys. Oh, Undo comes in at the last minute. Traps can be made for other kinds of monsters. A saw blade meant to chop an ogre's head will just give the players a bad scare. Oh, we haven't thought about sizes or shapes of monsters. A trap could be set to trap I don't know, like you said, like an ogre or scorpions or something. They're not really set to trap the humans. So there's a way for you to either enhance or mitigate the dangers that are involved in traps. Zeb says, managed to prolong video for 15 minutes. Mission accomplished. Yes. He's like, yeah. Anyway, guys, have a great one. You will see me tomorrow. Everyone have a great day. See ya. Bye.